Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. Today we have a great video for you. We are going to be doing full pistons and rods on the K24a engine. Prior to that, Mike is going to give you guys a step-by-step process, preparation-wise, make sure all the cleaning is done correctly. So yeah, let's go ahead and send it right over to him.
Yeah, like every bit counts.
Does. All right, now we are back at the shop, and like mentioned already, we are going to show kind of the process of the buildup from start to finish, kind of give you guys an idea of what you need. And so we do have the engine over here on the stand. We did get it bored out to 87.5 millimeters, and we went with scat connecting rods as well as nip-on pistons. Got our rod bearings, 4-piston head, all the goodies. So Mike, kind of what's the process or your process typically when you start with a fresh engine build such as this?
When I get a block back from the machine shop after it's been cut, clean it, and ready to go, you gotta clean it.
Okay.
You know, regardless if it just, probably got hot tanked. I mean, everyone's has their preference. I like to clean it before I start. And what I use are two things. The first process, automatic transmission oil. The reason why I use this stuff, and it doesn't matter on brand, it can be store brand, whatever. The automatic transmission oil would actually take off any residue or any grime that's embedded in the actual metal on the block and also on the crank. And afterwards, brake force cleaner. Never use water. Never use water. Again, people have preferences. Yeah, I mean, would you want any water in your motor?
I would say no. I would think corrosion, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so no water. Good deal. Transmission fluid.
Automatic transmission fluid and brake force cleaner.
Little tricks of the trade. I too myself have never built a motor from the ground up, so I wouldn't even know where to start when it comes to cleaning it. So good things to know. Do it correctly, do it right the first time.
Yes, sir.
Avoid a lot of mistakes.
All right, guys. We're gonna, before we install the crank, we gotta install these oil squirter delete bolts. On a VTEC motor, either B series, K series, they have oil squirters right here. You only need them if you're gonna be running stock rods. I mean, if you're running aftermarket rods like we are, they're unnecessary. When you delete them, you'll have better oil pressure. And these rods, they don't require the oil squirters because you don't want an oil squirter to get stuck, closed, stuck open. It'll lose oil pressure, bye-bye bearings. So to remove them, it's a 6.10 millimeter. These ones are already broken loose. It's always better to do it when the crank and the girdle is off because they're right there. Doing it with it, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You don't want that. But if you don't know what the oil squirter looks like, it's literally a nail. 10 millimeter bolt, oil basically. On the port right here, oil shoots up into the bolt. On the side, you can't really see, but that hole right in there, and it'll spray out, and it sprays the rods.
And that connects it right down.
Right in there.
Nice. Okay. And we are deleting a lot of those, correct?
Yes, we are deleting the oil squirters. You do not need them for aftermarket rods. I don't like to run them with aftermarket rods. You can. I've heard of people doing it, but I just don't want to run the risk of losing oil pressure because they can get stuck.
Fair enough.
Oil pressure in any car or any motor is important. And that's what it looks like with them off. So to install these, all you would need is 12.10 millimeter. That's all you need. Now there's not necessarily a specific torch back. Just obviously don't over torque them.
Okay.
Most people use Loctite. I've never had to use them. I've never had to use Loctite. And then as for these, we're using Speed Factory.
Part numbers right there.
And they're also the same for B series as well. B series, I believe H series. There's other brands, but I like to use a good quality. What you can do, because they're right here, just get them started. Shiny.
Not for long.
Yeah.
They look great now.
Yeah.
Oh, your engine bay, man. You're brave. It looks great, but keeping chrome clean is not easy.
The trick, actually, what I find works the best is not like a chrome polish, is Windex. Windex
Really?
works.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like Windex works on everything, man.
Yeah. No,
I don't have cleaner. Sometimes I'll just use Windex. Like, yep, that's what I got. That'll work.
people that have polished parts, if they get antifreeze on it, because with antifreeze, it'll dry up and it looks very, very ugly. Windex will wash it off. Don't use brake parts cleaner.
Good to know.
You always want to screw them in by hand first. You know, you don't want to mess with the threads.
Just like that. The titanium little squirter block offs are installed. Easy peasy.
So after those are installed, now we can start by cleaning the block. You know, once again, you got the girdle's off, you're fully exposed. You want to clean these journals right here. These are the journals for the main bearings.
Okay.
Now you see all this residue, don't get scared. This is literally just residue from the degreaser, old oil. As long as there's no actual pitting or deep scarring, perfectly fine. So what we're gonna do, grab a paper towel. Automatic transmission oil. That right there is pretty much all that you would need to clean the journals. Probably less than that. It doesn't take much. Put that aside. Now, it doesn't have to be near finish. Again, the automatic transmission oil is just basically taking off residue, any dirt that's embedded in the metal. After you do this, you're probably wondering, do I just leave any excess automatic transmission oil? No. After you're done doing that, you're gonna grab a can of brake parts cleaner. I would use a straw. You just clean the area. You can also clean the whole block. And you do the same process with the automatic transmission oil when you clean the cylinders before you install the pistons. You want a clean surface. You want everything to be clean. Right here is where your thrust washers will sit. The thrust washers are in package, but these are your thrust washers, which they're basically bearings. Now, when a crank has crank walk, means when it slides left or right, most likely these are worn out. Very, very crucial. Now that we're done with that, brake parts cleaner. Okay, all that is clean. Now we can go over it with a clean paper towel. Just wipe it down. Look at that. Brake parts cleaner dries, but still help clean it up. There we go. The journals for the crank are clean. Now we can get started on the crankshaft. Repeat the same process on the actual girdle. Those of you are asking what's a girdle? This is the girdle. You repeat the same process we just did right here. You clean these journals with the automatic transmission oil and brake parts cleaner. This sits right on top here. And the girdle have actually built-in caps, so when you bolt it down, it locks the crank in.
Nice.
Girdle. When you get your crank, after it's been cut, or in most cases, if your crank is clean, that you didn't have to send it out to get polished or balanced, you repeat the same process. You clean it with automatic transmission oil. Now you want to clean the journals for the mains, which are right here. These are the main crank journals. And these are the rod journals, the rod crank journals. This one's a bit dirty because we live in Arizona. Everything gets dusty.
Quick.
Very. And the bolts. These are the bolts for the girdle. Now, you're probably wondering, these are rusted. They're dirty. Just toss them out. No. Unless there's no physical damage, you can reuse them. These, you clean them. Now, there's a couple ways that you can do it. What I do, you first use a wire brush, and you can clean off any residue of rust. And use the automatic transmission oil, then you wire brush it again, and brake press cleaner. When you reinstall, you dip the threads in oil. You want to keep the threads on the bolt and the threads on the block lubricated, because if you get leather to metal, most likely it'll cross thread, and you don't. And these are steel bolts. Crossing thread, steel bolts, and an aluminum block, not fun. You can use these.
Just clean them up beforehand.
Clean them up beforehand. When you clean the crank, get a new rag. I like using these blue shop rags. Very sturdy, very absorbent. Clean, not clean. Also brings back the shine. Now that we got the journals for the mains, you can repeat the same process on the journals for the rod journals. See? Just enough. Doesn't take a whole lot. And what we filled up in our cap was exactly the amount that we needed to clean the crank and journals. That's all you need. Grab your crank. Careful, it's heavy. you just get a rag, wipe it down. Crank is ready to go.
Easy peasy.
Always want to use a new rag. For example, right now you just saw me use that one piece of rag to do the other nails. Grab another one for the other rock. There you go. Nice and clean. Now that we have our block clean and our crank clean and the lead bolts are installed, now we can get on with the process of installing the main bearings and thrust washers. Now there's different brands. Depending on the engine, when it comes towards like a turbo motor, I like using ACL. ACL, and they've been around for a long time.
Let me see those so I can get the part number on. Part number right there. There you go. Thank you.
If this was like an all-motor build, I personally like to use the King bearings. Also depends on what fuel. If you're going to be using E85, pump gas, not anyone, ACL is all you need. If you're going to be running something like M1 methanol, M5, I'd go with King. Just know that when you run that kind of fuel, you're going to be changing your bearings a lot more often because that fuel is very corrosive and it literally eats the bearing. When you want to go fast, you gotta pay the price. For a semi-lube, we're going to be using Lucas oil products. There's other brands. I like using Lucas. I use all their products. They're oil stabilizers and they've been around for a long time.
Solid product.
Now, when you put your assembly lube on, let me straighten up the crank and the block. I'm going to put a nice even amount. There's no such thing as too much. Syrup.
Man, don't mistake it for that. It'd be a bad day.
Yeah, your stomach would not be happy. On this one, which is for cylinder 3, you want to put a little bit more because your thrust washers sit right in here. Thrust washers, these lines always go facing out. Facing outward.
Okay.
And also, you'll see the part number. That goes against the block. So we just slide in like so. Now, if you forget to put those on, your motor will be knocking. That's the crank dancing around. You don't want that. Now that this is all set, now we gotta get the other bearings. Now, you're probably wondering, do the bearings just toss in there? No. There is a way that they go in. I can get this one apart. You see these little markings right here? The journal the rod bearings, the rods, they all have the same one. They all have a direction that they're supposed to face. Now on the actual journal where the bearings sit,
I see that. It's got that little notch, like that kind of sits right in there, huh?
Goes just, now don't force them down. You should be able to just pop them in, just like that. That's it. The tooth will go into that slot. Same with all. What I like to do is get this side on first, push the other side down. So after you got the bearings put in, get some more syrup. Be generous, but not too generous. Now, if you don't have the access of getting assembly lube, you can use motor oil.
Okay.
If you decide to use just motor oil, which is fine, you want to run a thicker weight, because as you see, the liquid is very thick. If I was going to use motor oil, I would probably run like a VR1 2050. Try to get yourself a bottle, something like this, or if you're gonna put it in the cap, just make sure a nice even amount. But I like Lucas.
Probably the safer bet, and that's not too expensive. I think it's less than $10 for that bottle. So yeah, probably get that if you're able. But worst case, use oil.
And it's a nice color too, green. Other people won't see it, but you will.
True.
So now that we got this already lubricated, let's get our crank. Be very careful when you set it down. It'll sit just like that. Now, before you install the girdle, you gotta use silicone to actually seal the girdle. It is torqued down, but it is sealed along the rope right here. So you can use Permatex Ultra Gray is my favorite. Unless you're fancy and you want to use Honda Bond. Honda Bond's expensive.
As long as it serves the same purpose,
Serves the same
gets
purpose.
the job done, that's all that matters.
Put a nice, good, generous amount. Remember, this seals the crankcase. Seals the crank. You don't want it to leak. Okay, so after you put your silicone, now it's time to get your girdle. And of course, I already pre-lubed it, but a little more don't hurt. Now, the girdle has these dowel pins, and they lock into the holes.
Kind of to help you know you have it perfectly squared on there.
Most cases, use a dead blow. Not really recommended to use this for your hands, but
I was about to say, yeah.
My hands are pretty much damaged. Working on cars for a long time, it's damaged to where I don't really have a whole lot of feeling. Now, I'm not going to use this to torque it down. That's a no-no. I'm just going to use this to guide the bolts down. Once you feel it's snugged, stop. Now you get your torque wrench, set it to 22 pounds. Camera can't really see it very well, but 22 pounds is the first set. Now on some torque wrenches, you'll hear it click. This one in particular will only click at a higher spec. It being so low, you have to keep an eye on it. Right there, where the head of the torque wrench doesn't move, but the handle does.
That's when you know you're within spec.
You're within spec. Now it's always recommended after you're done doing the first set, go over them again just to check. After that, your next set to do is between 56 pounds to 57 pounds. Now, the manual will say 56 degrees. I've already went ahead and did the calculations. The end result, or the end set that you set your torque wrench, is at 56 to 57 pounds. So that, already included with the 22, altogether will be about 57 to 58 pounds, which you are allowed to be a little bit over by 1 or 2 pounds, not too much. So let's go ahead and set this to, let's do 56.
And that's to account for like stretching, all that kinds of stuff, since it's technically not a torque spec due to all the other factors that are included.
Yes,
so
sir.
as long as it's within that window, you are good to go.
After it's torqued down to 56 pounds, you should be able to spin the crank by hand.
Freely.
That's what you want.
Nice.
Such a good feeling.
Heck yeah, dude.
That's how you torque down your crank. Now we do the 12 millimeters. Now there is a torque spec for those, but it's not mandatory, just nice and snug. The main bolts are very mandatory. What holds down the crank, the bearings, and also you can also before you do that, you can check for if there's any movement with the press washers. Now, if there's a little bit of movement, it's fine. You are allowed a little bit of movement. It's better if you have none. It's better if you have no movement.
Perfect.
All right, guys. So now it's time to cut the piston rings. What you're gonna get yourself is a piston ring filer, basic one, Amazon, and let me show you how it works. Now, when you cut them, on the piston ring, it has a letter. You don't want to cut on that side. You want to cut on the other side. So how you do that is you put it in like so. When you cut them, you want the end to be straight, and you literally use your finger to hold it down, and you just cut.
And this is a very tedious process because you don't want to cut them too much, right? Because then you basically gotta call the company and get new piston rings and start over.
Yeah, pretty much.
I bet you've had that happen.
I've had that
Yeah.
happen once before.
20 years working on cars, man. I can only imagine. Good deal. Let you do your thing. We'll check in as soon as Mike's done, and we'll get the process going with the pistons and rods and the block.
All right, guys. So yeah, when you're measuring the gap on piston rings, you're gonna want to use a feeler gauge. You can use a basic generic one. I got this one at AutoZone. They were about $5. So right now we're gonna measure the top ring. Now, remember, whenever you cut the piston rings, that they go to that cylinder. So you want to try to keep them in order. So this one, since I'm dyslexic, I'll start with cylinder 4. So to install them, you always want the gap up. Gently push them down to where it's like that. And what I used to use, or what I like to use, is one of the old pistons, and just use the old piston and just push it down, because you don't want it to be too far in. You want it to be about right there, because just when the piston's about almost at TDC is when it's at the peak of the gap. So that one's in. We're gonna measure it. Okay, let's get our feeler gauge here. We might get lucky and piston rings might be at the gap that we want them at. That's how you check them, just like this. Now this one is going to be at 15 thousandths of an inch. That's a bit too tight. We're going to want them more open, probably around like I said last time, around 22 thousandths for the top ring. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have it at that. You just want to have a good consistent number. So what we're gonna do is check this one, which we did at 15 thousandths. Then I'm gonna check the other ring, and we want to make sure that all of the top rings are close to the same. Now if they are, great. You know, we might get a ring that this one's a bit more open than that ring. So we gotta stay within our spec. That one's in. Let's get the other one. Now this one's cylinder 4, cylinder 3, 2, and 1. And you can go which any order you want, as long as you keep the piston rings in order for the pistons for the cylinders. So this is 15 thousandths, and that's 15 thousandths. So our first two are already at 15 thousandths. Let's get our next one. Okay, seems like so far our first three are at 15 thousandths of an inch. Let's check our last one. Once again, you want the number or the letter face up. This is the silver ring, so this is the top ring. Okay, so it's looking like all four of our top rings are at 15 thousandths of an inch. Want the gap to be a bit more. This motor, we're probably going to be throwing about, give or take, about 18 pounds of boost at it. So I don't want a tight gap. I might change it up. Now that I know that the top rings are at 15 thousandths of an inch, I might have the top ring at 20 thousandths and do the second ring at 22. But we won't know until we check the second ring. compression ring, or a scraper ring, I'm sorry, because at the edge of this it has a lip. It scrapes the oil down. So once again, letter facing up. We already have the 15. Let's see where it's at. Oh, this one's a little bit more, so let me see here. Let's try a 16. Okay, 16 is good. Let me see if we can try a 17 thousandths. Let's see here, I've got a 17 right here. $17 thousandths. So cut this one. Let's check the other ones. Okay. We're getting very lucky because half the time when you get piston rings, they're gapped at a weird number. These are pretty consistent. Okay, 17 thousandths. Okay, hey, we got lucky. All right, so it's looking like our top rings are at 15 thousandths and our second rings are at 17 thousandths. So we're within range. Right now, this spec exactly right here would be like an all motor type thing. Now you can run that on boost, you just can't run a lot of boost. On a turbo motor, you want the gap to be greater. So I think I'm gonna change it up and do probably, yeah, I'm probably gonna do 20 and 22. All right, guys, now that we got the block done, the block is ready to go. Now we gotta assemble the pistons and the rods together. Now, you might think, you know, I'm sure some people probably think they just snap together. No, there's a way that they go. And also, we're also gonna talk about piston rings. Which one goes where, which one's what. So for starters, on the piston itself, it has an arrow right here. And where it says IN, that means intake. On a K series, intake is facing the front, facing you. So, and these are the pins. This is what holds the rods on the pistons. So, this is your top ring. Now on the piston ring itself, it'll usually have a number, a letter. You always want that facing up, facing out, not down. This is your top ring, and this is your oil ring. So they would consider this being your compression ring and this being your oil ring. Now on the edge of this, you can probably feel it. It's supposed to scrape. It's supposed to, as it goes up, it scrapes it down. Once again, letter facing up. And these are the oil rings. These right here, they don't have to be cut. They don't have to be, you know, measured with a filler gauge. These just basically just go on. But when you, after you're done installing the piston rings, before you install them into the block, the piston rings have to be clocked, and we'll get into that once we're ready to install them in the block. So here's a piston. Here's the stock piston and rod that I pulled out of the motor. And just like on the crank, when we installed the mains, there's a groove. Oh. You see that? There's a tooth, there's a slot right there and one right here. So basically you want that area to be facing the exhaust side, not the intake side. On a B series, it's the opposite. Naturally, because on the stock piston where it says IN, on a K series, intakes in front, B series, intakes in back. So, and the bottom part also has a slot. You want it to match up. Right in there. So those two spots are going to be facing the exhaust side on a K series. And when you cut the piston rings, when you get into that, they're cut for each cylinder. You do not want to mix and match, because if you mix and match, no bueno. So put these aside. This is your top ring, and this is your second ring. When you install them, you want to lube up the pin, lube up the slot. Side, right here. Right. You can use oil, a semi-lube. I mean, any kind of lubricant will work. In this case, we are going to use a semi-lube. Now, I'm going to put on some gloves for this. I don't want to be making a mess, even though I probably already will. Okay, so grab your assembly lube. Start by putting a little line. And on the piston, how it has the arrow, that's always going to be facing the timing chain side. Just pop that in there like that. And same thing with the rod. Those slots go facing the exhaust side. Like so. And what keeps the pin from not popping out are these rings. Now popping these in is going to be kind of a pain. So what I like to do is start by getting one side already partially on. And you can use a flat tip screwdriver, a pick, whatever you can to get that pin in there, because that will lock these rings in place to keep the pins from falling out. You don't put these, this will pop out, and there goes your cylinders. Like so. Now, I only put in just this one side, but I don't know if you can see, the ring's in there, locks the pin in. Just get the other side in. It is locked in and not going anywhere. And continue the process on the other 4 pistons. and we'll get to the piston rings after these are installed. Now that we have all 4 pistons and rods connected and they're at the right angle, now we can get started on the piston rings. The easiest ones to install that don't require to get cut are the oil rings, are the bottom 3. There's 2 oil rings and a spacer. Now there's different ways to put them on. You can use piston ring pliers or anything like that. You don't necessarily need them. I mean, you can put them on by hand. The last ones are going to be the top second and top first. So what I like to do is install the spacer first. Makes it easier. Goes at the very bottom right here. So I'll just toss it on. You can use your thumb to hold it. Don't expand it too much. You don't want it to break. And like that. Now the oil rings are going to be a bit tricky, but just repeat the same process and you'll be just fine. Put the third one. Gonna go on top of the spacer. Looks exactly like that. So it's ring, spacer, then ring. Now, after these are installed and the top 2 are cut, before we install them, they have to be clocked. The opening right here, there's a certain way that they're supposed to face. Like for an example, the top ring, the opening, you want it facing this way. But we'll get more into that before we install, when we're ready to install these in the block. Oh. All right, now that we have the spacer and the 2 oil rings, now our next thing is to cut the top rings. All right, now when you're building a turbo motor or an all motor setup, a nitrous, when you gap the piston rings, on an all motor setup or nitrous motor, you want it to have a tight gap. Now you measure it with a feeler gauge. A lower number would basically mean that these would be a lot more closer. This is a turbo motor, so we want the gap to be relatively high. I think on the service manual it says the most we are allowed is 30 thousandths of an inch. I'm gonna try to keep it around on the top ring. Excuse me, on the top ring, try to keep this one around like 22 or 23 thousandths of an inch, and the second ring, you want that maybe 1 or 2 thousandths under the top ring. So for example, if we do the top ring at 22 thousandths of an inch, You want the second ring, which is the scraper ring, around 24. So this way the top's at 22, the bottom's at 24. Before you cut the piston rings, you do want to put them in the block and check what they're already cut, because sometimes these rings come pre-cut. Usually they're pre-cut for like an all-motor setup, so you have enough material that you can cut off to get it to the gap that you need it at. So I will show you how to do that in just a moment. Alright guys, now that we got our piston rings cut, our bearings are all set, everything's lubed, it's ready to get these things in, and let's go. Already went ahead and pre-lubed the bolts. We're using ARP 2000s. The spec sheet that comes with it from SCAT, directly from ARP, is if you're using the ARP 2000 bolts with moly lube, the torque spec is 50 pounds. Now with this, there's not exactly an actual sequence, just 1, 2, because you're doing each rod, each cap, so you don't have to do like we did when we torqued on the crank. So very straightforward. Make sure you want to put a nice good amount of this, because you do not want to put these in dry. You'll stretch the bolt or cause more damage. We don't want that. That's a good sign if you can spin it by hand. And we barely only got cylinder 1 and 4 in. The reason why you want to do cylinder 1 and 4 is because those ones have it that the pistons are already all the way down. But the fact that I can still spin it by hand, this motor is going to be very happy. And you always want the arrows to be pointing to the timing chain side. Also follow where it says intake, because intake is right here, exhaust is right here. And yes, it is possible to install them upside down. I've never done it. I've seen motors like that. It'll still run, not very well. So just, it's always good to do it right the first time. All right, guys, now that we got our pistons and rods installed, last but not least, let's torque them down. Now for this, you can use a click style torque wrench, Harbor Freight, 20 bucks. Does well. So we're gonna be doing a one step on this, just 50 pounds. Now, some people have preferences, you know. I believe stock is around like 40 pounds if you're using stock bolts, but we're using ARP 2000s. So 50 pounds is where we want to be at. Get our, on the ARP 2000s, the socket size is a 12 point, 11 millimeter. Set our torque wrench here to 50 pounds, and I'm going by what the paper says. I'm going by exactly what the paper says directly from SCAT, and it says here for the 3/8 ARP 2000 cap screw, 50 foot-pounds with moly lube, and that's what we use. That comes with the rods and rod bolts. But if you have any more questions, or if you have any questions about what to do if you get scared, always feel free to message us. The best advice I can say going into a motor build is take your time. Don't get scared. We all mess up. We're all only human, except Nick, because he's an alien. But yeah. Okay, we have our torque wrench set at 50 pounds. Right here. And when you torque down anything really, you don't want to yank hard. Nice and gentle. $50 pounds. Always good to go over your bolts. Just it's better to be safe than sorry. Well, that's it on this video. As you can see, torque down. Sounds really good. There's our motor. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to message us. I believe My the personal number is also on the banner, so if you have questions, you can text, call, and I'll be more than happy. And if I'm not available, Nick's available, and we will get you the support that you would need. Thanks for watching, and please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for this video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to give you guys just a full in-depth video of the full build-up, step-by-step process. I haven't really found too much online, so I figured I'd offer that for the channel. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Mike did a fantastic job. Thank you, brother. So happy to be working with you, man. So grateful that the world gets to see your talent. Lastly, I will leave you guys with this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Guys, have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.